In the article Sexual Perversion, the author Thomas Nagel tries to form a general definition of what perversion really is. Nagel starts by defining this idea by stating 4 of what he calls general conditions that must be met for something to be considered a perversion. The first one is that you must sense the other person. The second is that the other person must sense you. And the third is you must sense the other person sensing you. And the fourth is that the other person senses you sensing them. Nagel then gives an example of 2 adults being aroused by just looking at one another, which he says is the start to any sexual relationship for adults. With this example, he explains the steps of the development of sexual relationships, which you need to be considered normal. He basically says that a sexual relationship begins with the arousal of one person, which the other person is unaware of. Then the arousal of that person because they notice the other person being aroused. Then they are mutually aroused and later physical contact or intercourse must occur. By this, Nagel says that a normal sexual relationship must involve mutual perceptions. However, Nagel points out that even if the above is the correct definition of adult sexual relationships, it is not correct to say that anything that does not fall exactly into this definition is considered a perversion. He uses the example of sexual fantasies to show this fault in his argument. By being part of this fantasy, one would not be considered another person's real partner because there would not be a mutual perceptions, meaning that this would not be a normal sexual relationship, which means that this would be a perversion. Nagel then goes on by adding to the definition that perversion also consists of the prevention of a normal sexual relationship when there was potential for there to be a normal relationship. He then says that the distinction between this definite and undeterminate potential makes an unclear area. But then he ends his definition. Nagel does an excellent job of outlining his definition of what perversion means. These rules of what consists of a normal sexual relationship. At first I thought that these rules were far too rigid, but then he finds fault in his argument and explains how this is not the exact way for something to be a perversion, or not, and some things may curve a little bit out of the definition. This is why he calls it a general definition and not an exact definition.